Hey, it's a good day outside here, sun is shining. It's a bit windy and I hope it doesn't disturb the sound too much on this video. But I'm going to have a second look at my dual 510 turntable. In my previous video I looked briefly at the belt and tried to spin it up to see if there was some action in there, and we found out that the belt has to be replaced. I've ordered it but it hasn't arrived yet, so I can't do that piece of work. A second thing that I want to do is check the underside, take it out of the case and see if there is anything wrong, and to oil the motor if needed. And the third thing that I'm going to do is replace this DIN connector with phono connectors and split up the grounds. I have everything ready to do that. I have enough phono plugs here to last the life cycle. I have a separate ground cable that I'm going to use, and that's enough to split those things up. Like every dual turntable, you remove the turntable from the base by releasing these three screws here, putting them in an odd angle, lifting the turntable out of the base, and then you also have to remove some clips and tightening thingies to have the cables longer so that you can take the whole thing out of the base. I'll also take a good look at the underside of the skating here, because there is a plastic off-center ring that typically breaks or shows cracks from age. I'm filming this for my own reference, just checking how the cables are mounted in this piece so that I can do it the same when I fix the table again. And by opening the table I found out that I have a new issue. My arm lift handle just fell off when I turned the table on its back, and luckily for me the missing part is here inside the box, so I still have everything and this can be fixed. The motor is of a type that I've serviced before, so that's going to be okay. It's the typical dual motor that you see on many of those tables. They have a few odds and ends that are different in different tables, but in general you maintain them the same way. Splitting the ground for the signal is something that I have to do underneath this shield, so I'll remove the shield first. We'll have a look at the wiring, and most likely we'll see that the ground from the table, the signal ground left and signal ground right, will all be interconnected underneath this case here. So this is what I was talking about. You can see the three grounds interconnected, but it's also the first time that I see that it's interconnected on both sides. So you can see here the two left and right signals, but all the grounds here are wound together when they exit the audio cable and put on one point. Typically you would see the three grounds separated on one side and only bridged on the other side, but this is the first time that I see it done on both sides. So this is going to be easy to fix. I just cut the three wires through. This one will go to the separate ground lead, and the other two are going to be the left and right ground signals. But here I'll have to cut off a piece of the wire to unwind some of the groundings and to take care that they are not interconnected. And the mental note for self, the red one on the left, the yellow one on the right. Step 1 is done. I have removed the shortcut between those three pins, so we now have separate grounds, table grounds and audio grounds on the arm side. I've also put in a separate ground lead that will go to the preamp later. The next thing I have to do is unwind these two pieces of ground wire, so they are the shielding of the left and the right signal put together. I have to unwind them, take care that none of the strands touch each other, and then solder them to the lungs here on the mute switch. So that's been done. The two wires have been split. You can see that they are now perfectly isolated from each other. I've put a little bit of solder on the base here to prevent that they go berserk where they're closest to each other, and from then they branch out, and I'll solder them on the solder lugs in the table switch, which I call a switch, but that's not really correct. This is not a switch, it's just a connect through. On some of the dual tables there is a mute here, and it shortcuts sound and ground whenever the table is in motion, but for this one that's not implemented, it's just contacts that go through. I'm inside for the moment, and please forgive the noise, but that's the sound of my rework station here. I'm going to mount shrink tubes around the grounds to make it even better isolated, because I have to fit them underneath that copper cap inside the table. I don't really have control on how the leads bend and go, so putting shrink wrap around them will work. I have put the extra ground lead through the shrink wrapping here, or the gummy ring that is put underneath this clamp, so everything is almost as if done from factory. I haven't seen any year reference inside this table, but it must be late 70s, maybe early 80s. But let's damage something permanently that has been there forever. Putting on phono plugs is one of my least favorite tasks. And to make it a bit doable, I don't have a third hand. I'm just using a tiny phono amplifier and use the outputs to keep the phono plug in place, then solder it on. What I can't show in the video is the amount of steps of despair you have to go through to fit this nut back again on the arm lift. It's very difficult to get at, it's very difficult to aim, and very difficult to get that nut down while you're re-entering the arm lift. But again, I did it. And that's it for today. I didn't do everything. I thought I would also have time to review the motor, but that will be for a different time. But it's not bad, is it? So I have split out the groundings here. Everything is professionally put back together as if it's new. This thing is fixed here, the arm lift, and the whole table is in rather good condition. So once the belt arrives, I'm going to continue here, clean the motor, fit the new belt and get her going.